Hey YouTube, we're back today with another video about the Canon R6. I'm trying to learn more about it and some of the issues that I've been having. So naturally when people need help with something, they go to a place like YouTube to try and find videos on, things they want to purchase or learn from somebody who knows how to use it better. And I was unable to find a single video of somebody using the R6 in the scenario and the settings that I am actually trying to use. So that setting is servo mode. So eye tracking is on, trying to track a moving subject while it's moving, continuously tracking it. Shooting in a burst mode, so holding the shutter down, catching shots in rapid fire as it's moving, and essentially trying to stop motion somewhere in between there and pick the nicest shot. So all that tells me is that this is still early days for the Canon R6. Not everything's been figured out and tested just yet, but we did find out some answers and I want to share that with you today. So the Canon's homepage YouTube website really didn't offer much help. As you can see here, images are for visualization purposes only. So the eye autofocus that they're sharing is not actually indicative of real-world results. So a lot of the videos I did see about the Canon R6 had a lot of comments about the eye tracking and how well it worked and how amazing it is and how it's tracking everything everywhere. And that's great. My camera does that too. But when you actually look at the shots that it's producing of those eye tracking movements, mine are not that sharp, not a high volume of them, which is causing me some concern. And a lot of those videos don't share actual results of what they're shooting. They just show the back of the camera and how it's tracking things. So they're just giving an initial impression of the system that they're using. So I'm not a Canon expert or a mirrorless expert, but I'm an image quality expert. And I know what it is I'm looking for in my photography, and I'm just not finding it yet. And perhaps we're just looking at different things. One of the things that stands out as an obvious factor here is that most of the people who are reporting very little problems or they're having amazing results with the Canon R6 are shooting with RF lenses. And I'm using more budget-friendly EF lenses that are adapted. So perhaps that's a warning right there that some of this camera's most amazing features and pushing it to its limits are really meant for the native mount. But I want to test that theory out, take these lenses as far as I can go and figure things out and see if I could get similar results. Even though I'm making this video about budget adapted lenses, I don't feel like I've completed all of my testing just yet, but I've done enough where I've had a couple good days that have been building my confidence up when you can get similar results and we can come to some conclusions together. And when I wasn't testing the lenses, I was researching, so I want to share some of the things that I learned. I focused my research on sports photography, how they're shooting, mirrorless technology, R6 technology, adapted lenses, and autofocus systems. If you're searching for similar information that I am, it's amazing how much is out there that has nothing to do with what we're about to talk about. I found just about every other Canon R6 video talked about something that was everything but what I wanted. Some of these videos included testing eye autofocus on mannequins, testing focus system on mushrooms in a forest, shooting animals with the IAF, shooting with the R5 instead of the R6. People shooting with RF lenses or high-end EF lenses, people sitting for half an hour teaching how to go through every single setting in the camera, and wedding photographers who are opting to use the touch and drag single point focus instead of letting the camera do the work. So I'm really trying to focus on how to use this camera's most intelligent, most enhanced features instead of giving up and just going back to an old way of shooting. So one of the most interesting things that I found in the beginning was channels that were testing the eye autofocus in different scenarios, what their hit rate was. First, I want to highlight a channel by a photographer named John Gress, who tested the eye autofocus and actually measured his focus hit rate. On average, using iFocus, he was hitting about 30%, and in some cases as bad as 50%. So that tells me that I'm actually not off in my initial gut prediction. Another well-known photographer, YouTuber, Jared Polin, or Fronos, had more positive results, around 20%, but he wasn't shooting in continuous burst mode all the time. He was kind of picking his shots. So you can actually see the eye autofocus kind of going wild from time to time in his videos in these screenshots. So if he was doing more burst firing like I am, I think he would have seen more like 30% the way John Gress was. So what's going on and how can we fix this to improve our shot rate? I have found some ways to fix this. So the past week, I took 1,300 something photos, trying to get my hit rate up each day by changing some settings and seeing what improves. But prior to my last video, I was shooting in a mode called H+. And I didn't realize, but buried deep in the R6 manual, page 851, only certain select lenses are even supported in that mode. So you could throw on an old lens and set that mode and it wouldn't stop you, but your results would not be guaranteed. So here I am trying to burst fire in the fastest mode possible on lenses that are not supported. So I learned a lesson there, rookie mistake. I guess those lenses just are not fast enough to keep up with the R6. So I would avoid that mode if you can at all possible. Stick with just H or the slower shooting modes. The obvious answer would be to just go and buy RF lenses if you can. I believe they have 12 electronic pins talking to the R6, ensuring that things are in focus, and it's talking fast with the technology like IBIS and an IAF. Whereas my adapted lenses I think are more like 8 pins. And clearly there's something missing there and they're just not keeping up. That's a huge reason to go and transition to the newer mount to get the most out of your R6. Another thing I learned is in testing with the electronic shutter, you get a lot of benefits by switching to that mode, like a silent shutter, less mechanical moving parts so you get less vibration, faster shutter speed, less viewfinder blackout. But the problem with that is you're encouraging warping subjects due to the way that electronic shutters work, as well rolling shutter, and I didn't like seeing those results sneaking into my shots. It's basically as if you were shooting in H+, which we said is not a good idea, so I would avoid the electronic and just go with the mechanical shutter. Because as we saw, again, the lenses just can't keep up. So the biggest takeaway from this whole video that I want you guys to hear is that when I turned off IBIS, I saw an incredible improvement in my hit rate and my in-focus rate shooting servo with IAF. It made a huge difference, and I want to talk about that for a little bit. So it's common knowledge that when you shoot with a tripod, you want to turn all of your stabilization settings off because the camera is already stable, and basically the sensor is reading its own movement, causing blurrier images than necessary. But what I didn't realize is that if you're shooting in ideal conditions, beautiful light, 100 ISO, super fast shutter speeds, you basically don't need IBIS either, and it's actually degrading your shots for very similar reasons. If you were like me when the first time you picked up your R6, you immediately switched the IBIS on, shooting fast shutter speeds, trying to max this thing out, but now I'm thinking I've got to take a step back and realize that all technology comes with a price. There's a sacrifice to be made for shooting in things like higher ISO or lower apertures. Nothing comes without a side effect. So I would encourage you to only turn IBIS on if you absolutely need it. But I would love for you guys to test this out. Try IBIS on and IBIS off at these high shutter speeds and tell me what you think. Are you getting the same results that I am? I did reach out to a sports photographer on YouTube and he actually said that he does not use IBIS. So to wrap up and talk about some of the other settings in the camera that I have going that are giving me some better results, we'll start off with servo mode. I'm using auto case right now, which is case A. Case 1, I found the eye could not keep up with fast moving subjects, so I'm moving away from ever using case 1 for the moment. Same with initial server AF point. I've got that set to auto. I find it's doing a really good job automatically choosing the best focus method for where the face is or how to compensate for when there's no face at the time. Much faster than just telling it to use one point at all times. As users in the comments pointed out, one really great technique is to use the back button autofocus, the AF on button, hold that down while you're in servo mode to continue to track the eye, as opposed to the shutter, holding it halfway down and using it also as your trigger to take a shot. You're encouraging more problems by keeping that all on the same button. So use that back button autofocus and leave it held down while you're doing your continuous shooting. Turn off the auto flicker setting. Right in the Canon manual, it says that this encourages shutter lag, so turn that off. And one warning with all of this, because eye tracking and servo mode are so heavy on the battery, you are going to drain the crap out of this thing. So make sure you have batteries on hand. If you're trying to use these modes for sports or weddings, one battery will not last you 8 hours for this event. So to wrap this up, I am still in communication with Canon. I've sent them some sample photos and explained the situation to try and understand if this is actually what is supposed to happen with this camera, with these adapted lenses, with these settings. I want to make sure that I'm being as diligent as I can with what I'm sharing here. I'm not a professional with this camera yet, so please test this information out yourself. I'm just finding these are my results so far, but I haven't concluded my testing, and there's not a whole lot of other opinions out there to help me out. So I'm just giving what I can for now to help you out. All that said, I'm really enjoying using the camera and learning how to use it like I did when I first got the 6D, my first DSLR, and I didn't know what I was doing. I remember I used to shoot everything in 100 ISO for the first week I got it because some video told me that that was the best quality to shoot in, not realizing that not every situation needs 100 ISO. It'll cause a lot of blurry photos. This is a learning experience, and I want to share that experience with you. I'm going to make some mistakes, but I'm sure you guys will point that out. This camera does some other things that I'm really enjoying incredibly well. It's dynamic range when you're shooting very bright highlights and very dark shadows together. It does an amazing job balancing it right off the bat, making your Lightroom work so much easier. It's incredible how fast you can whip through these edits with a lot less work. And the more I test and the better I get with these automation features, I can see it's just making me a stronger photographer in the end than going back to the tried and true focus and recompose, which we already know works. But how do we move forward with this technology and with this camera? And as photographers, we gotta understand it, we gotta test it, figure it out, optimize it, and all that good stuff, which I love. So thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this and learned something, please hit like and subscribe. Visit DemaninPhotography.com or my Instagram for even more info. Bye for now.